Hi guys, welcome to Crazy Burger. In this video we're going to be playing through all 5 games coming as part of Windjammers, Karnov and Friends arcade collection on Evercade. This should release sometime in June. We're going to be playing through all 5 games. Have to note, not on an Evercade. This will just be purely on emulation, but it shouldn't differ too much from the real thing. Anyway guys, let's get started with the video. So before we get started talking about the actual games, just a little bit of a background regarding where this collection actually comes from. So it really was, or should be, a Data East Collection 3 of some sorts, but I guess these games were purchased when Data East went defunct by a company in Japan called Powon. Or Powon, I'm not entirely sure how you actually pronounce it, but they purchased some of Data East's back catalogue, and that's basically what you're going to see on this collection. But I guess the name of Powon or Paon wasn't really well known, and I guess most people would have probably thought, who the heck is that? If you've seen that getting released in, that would be the name of the cartridge. So I guess they went with a more recognised sort of game title with Windjammers and Karnov, which I guess most people would probably recognise from the arcades back in the day. So that probably does make a lot of sense, but it does make for a very strange cart name, sort of Windjammers, Karnov and Friends. It does sound a little bit daft, to be honest. I'm sure they could have come up with something better, but it is what it is. Maybe they should have ran a competition for this and come up with the best name. But anyway, probably a little bit of a disclaimer here. My gameplay is probably terrible in this because the games are really tough to get going. And this first game, Atomic Runner Chelnov, is obviously it's a sort of run and gun style game. You can actually aim backwards, but it's quite tricky. You have to press a different button and then aim backwards. So I die so many times in this, and I've made so little progress, it's almost laughable. But thankfully, obviously when we get these on Evercade, you will have access to those save states, and hopefully they will also have access to some dip switch settings for a lot of these games, because they are very tricky. Fingers crossed you can maybe get access and make the games a little bit more accessible, a little bit more easier, and hopefully they get the controls right as well, because I felt when I was playing this game on emulation it was a little bit tricky to control, especially trying to shoot in different directions. It would probably be nice to have the sort of shooting in a different direction sort of allocated to separate buttons, much I guess like playing games like Xenocrisis. So thankfully there is checkpoints throughout the stages that you see here, but they are quite spread out, and I definitely found it really challenging to actually make progress. I'm not a huge fan of this game, but I don't dislike it either. I can't really dislike it just because I'm not particularly good at it. It seems pretty decent for what it is, and one of those games you'll definitely need to learn the layout of the enemies and try and obviously get better as you play. Definitely will benefit from the save states, no doubt about it. So next up we have Karnov, which is probably a little bit of a run and gun game as well, but you might recognise the character from this game. He was one of the bosses in Bad Dude vs Dragon Ninja. He was also one of the end bosses, I think, in Fighter's History, and he also was part of Fighter's History Karnov's Revenge as well, which isn't on Evercade. Maybe it will be at some point. Anyway, down to Karnov, which is, I think it was from 1987, and it is a notoriously tricky game to get used to. It's not one of those games you want to rush through too much. I think you want to take your time and obviously learn those enemies whereabouts and moves, and pick up all those bonuses because they will help you make progress, and you can obviously get better weapons as you go as well, which makes a massive difference to this game. Once you get the better weapons, it actually opens up the game to almost a different level, so to speak, and it was certainly much more enjoyable. Sometimes I think I was getting a little bit frustrated. Being tentative maybe wasn't the best way of playing the game, but anyway, it is what it is. All I can say is it's a very, very tough game, and another one that will probably benefit from the save states, and hopefully, as I said, we will get dip switch access, and we can maybe make it a wee bit easier, especially for players like me that are probably not that great at these type of games. So next up we're looking at Rohga Armour Force. This was released way back in 1991, but it was originally called Wolfang Kuga 2001 when it was released in Japan, but outside of Japan it was known as something else, which is a little bit weird. I don't know why they do that. I mean, the name makes just as little sense. But anyway, that's what happened, and this is another sort of run and gun style game, but it's more sort of mech based, sort of robot based, so to speak. And this one is probably my most enjoyable game so far from this collection, probably because it's not quite as frustratingly difficult. It's not a one-hit kill scenario, and you get a few hits before you actually die. I really enjoyed playing it. I thought it was very good. Sometimes I felt a little bit stuck right enough where the robot seems to just going rails a little bit. Obviously you can actually jump, and obviously apologies, the character does disappear sometimes when it takes a hit, and that's just down to the frame rates whilst recording the footage, nothing to do with the actual game in real time. But I have to say, really enjoy playing this one. It is a lot of fun. With it you can just insert continues, or insert coins anyway, and just continue from where you are, so not a massive problem and not necessarily needing of dip switches, so to speak, but it's a lot of fun. Thoroughly enjoy playing it. I think this one will go down well with audiences out there on Evercade.
Commence your attack! Blaster done! Alright! Maximum homing missile power! Alright!
So next up we've got Vapor Trail, and this is a traditional scrolling shoot 'em up. It's pretty decent for what it is. I don't think it's amazing. It doesn't really stand out for me as being one of the best shoot 'em ups you'll ever play. It's okay. It did also appear on the Genesis or Mega Drive Mini, I'm sure, that was released a couple of years ago. So I definitely remember playing it, but it is extremely tough to get through. It isn't one of the easiest shoot 'em ups you'll ever play. But for me, it doesn't really stand out. After playing some of the excellent shoot 'em ups from Tour Plan 3 and 4 that was released at the end of 2024, it's difficult to appreciate some of these games. Now, if you're a big fan of the game, that's going to be obviously a little bit different. But for me, it's one of those games I probably would rather go play some of the shoot 'em ups from Tour Plan rather than play this. Nothing particularly wrong with it, I just think it pales in significance to some of those games. There's a lot of nice effects in it, but I just think the effects of maybe the extra bombs that you get and the extra ships, it just doesn't really hit. It just doesn't really feel any impact on it at all. It just feels like a run-of-the-mill shooter to me. Sorry if you like this game, that's just my opinion. It just didn't really grasp me as much as some of the Tour Plan games did from Tour Plan Collection 3 and 4. So final game on the collection, this is Windjammers, and this is, interestingly enough, a game by Data East made for the Neo Geo. So interesting tie-in there, but it's a basic game, there's not really an awful lot to it, so it's interesting that they have this as the main game of the collection. Maybe arguably it's the best known game from this collection, and it's kind of like a beach volleyball style game, but you're throwing a disc and trying to get past the opponent to get as many points as you possibly can. As you can see by the graphics there, if you get it in the corner you get 5 points, if you get it in the yellow section you get 3 points. You can also throw the ball, the disc up in the air, and if the opponent does not catch it I think you get 2 points. You can obviously knock the opponent out with the disc as well, and there's various different power ups as you go, but the game does feel very basic. There's not an awful lot to it. Obviously defeat the beat the opponent, and you'll move on to the next stage until you actually complete it. So it's a typical sort of sports style sort of game. Very classy, it does look fantastic, does sound fantastic. There's just not an awful lot to it, but at least you can play this as a 2-player game as well, which will come in handy if you have a VS and a friend, or if you've got an Alpha you can maybe play a 2-player game on the Alpha. Overall it's a really decent game. I'm just not particularly great at it. I don't really see the fuss with the game. I think it's one of those games I need to play more. I guess I just need to get a lot better at it.
Bravo!
Set. Game set.
Suat! Marcha!
Round 1. Miss. 2 points.
Tiro 12. Bravo!
Set. Get ready. Three points.
Shot! Cutting up!
3 points. Miss. 2 points.
Bravo!
Set. Game set. Three points.
Oh!
3 points.
Es mío!
Set. Game set.
Marcha!
Okay guys, so my final thoughts on Windjammers Karnov and Friends collection. I think it's okay, there's nothing truly outstanding about it, but at the same time there's nothing really bad about it either. There's 5 decent enough games. Some I preferred over the other. Windjammers is really good, just I didn't really feel there's an awful lot of depth to the game. I guess it's your typical arcade style game. The other games are all decent enough, decent shooters, decent run and gun games. I think they'll definitely come into their own once we get them on Evercade, when you've got access to save states and hopefully dip switch settings as well. But yeah, nothing really blew me away about the collection. You might think otherwise if you have a lot of nostalgia for some of these games and remember playing them back in the day in the arcade, you might get more out of this collection. But I guess for most people it's really just a run-of-the-mill arcade cart. Looking at the value as well, I double checked that before we started this video, and the value is actually really good. Looking at Windjammers itself, you can actually purchase this on the Switch, albeit the digital version, for £13.49. And that's just one game. So on this cart you've got 5 games, so you could argue this is actually a really decent value for money collection. I don't think a lot of these games are readily available on many other different formats. I didn't see any of these games in Steam, for example. Windjammers does have a sequel, which is about 20 or more pounds if you want to sort of buy that. If you want to actually get the Switch physical version, which was released on a limited run, it's going to cost you a ridiculous amount of money to own that. So this cart is decent value for money. I don't think there's anything outstanding about it, but overall it's not too bad, it's okay. Anyway guys, thanks very much for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Bye for now.